Hello, everyone. Welcome to GuyValley.com. I'm Kenton, and I'm here to talk about Guy Valley's new book and doing an interview with a special young man, Jay Vallee, son of the amazing Guy Vallee. Both are amazing. Jay, welcome. I have a question for you right away. What is your dad's origin story around starting ministry in Mount Vernon? What's the inside story?
So when the church plant kind of season came with Cascade, he had been the like full time as the youth pastor up at Living Stones with his older brother Paul, my uncle Paul, who's still up there and ministering in Red Deer, Alberta. But we came down and my dad just was excited to start the church plant, and it started in our living room on Colony Road in the double wide trail. It was a very sweet, godly couple that two of them actually. One we were renting from. The other one was some retired missionaries that just got together with us, and we prayed together and saw that. So when the church plant was starting, he was working for like youth, some kind of youth counseling service place. So he was driving at risk teens around and doing kind of quote unquote para church ministry things that had connected into the kind of needs within the community. And then it slowly grew into hey, we're going to rent a convention center on the outside of a hotel, and did that for a few years, and then renovated the Tri Cinemas, the movie theater area, and that's when we had originally started looking at doing a roller rink kind of deal, and then that pivoted quickly into Jungle Playland.
Yeah, wow. So was it true that he was a chef when he was running the church?
So that was actually while he was putting himself through school. So he wasn't. He was pursuing his MDiv at Regent, and again, even with his undergraduate stuff, I believe this was before I was even alive. I think the he was working at different restaurants and going to school, so he'd be jumping from one thing to the other on a regular basis. And he always like, man, as tough as ministry is, at least it's not restaurant work. And then come 2008, 2009, he started a restaurant. I'm like, what are you doing, Dad? I always thought that as tough as ministry gets, it's not restaurant work. And um, but yeah, he had always been working, other jobs or side things, but his main focus was always, uh, focusing on ministry. My mom, thankfully, was the stabilizing factor for all of us. She worked the 9 to 5 at the bank and made ends meet. So it was really my mom who is the secret hero in my dad's story of crazy ministry adventures. Is that she held down the fort.
I can see that. Like she is the anchor while he was the social entrepreneur, dreaming up things just like Dr. Houston was a visionary and the kite floating in the air, and Mrs. Houston was holding on to that kite while he was doing his thing. Really great memories. So, I have a question. What is so great about this book and why should people read it? What's your endorsement message?
I think the biggest thing is like here is someone that I know intimately well, who has wants to see the church succeed, wants to see youth ministry take shape in again a new cultural moment, which is ironically how the and go all of a sudden, like, it's detaching from the digital, like, while having that as a again as an incredible foundation piece for connectivity. But now it's back to here's a lived out ministry where I got to be in the periphery of doing things like the metamorphosis tunnel, where you have these immersive real life experiences that again, all of these doing the little video, all these that we think as normative now, those were things that were what my dad was doing back in the 90s, in the early 90s, and that we got to do and implement in different ways, all the way, pre Y2K, which is incredible to be like, no, the things that we were doing then, that the beauty is, gathering around meals, gathering around, just having a great time with these kids and meeting where they are, and creating environments that they long to be in. Um, kind of on the backside of that now, for where I'm at in our church here, we have this huge gym, just big blank space, and we've had some kids coming to our church that oh, their parents were dragging them to the one of the mega churches down the road with this huge play facility, state of the art. Where do the kids want to be? The blank gym that they can be creative and use their imagination, and just run and play, and have fun. And I think for thinking back on the book in particular, though, like here are multiple settings where that were refined in the process of rural, very different demographics versus Red Deer, being in a city space, and again, hockey culture, all these kinds of things where it's like the community that is built around Christ transcends all of that. And the beauty is that, yeah, it's there's a lot of practical application, and giving people tangible things is a game changer now. Ironically, in I was actually watching something on church dynamics for know, kind of the upcoming. Is like they actually need like five, like these guys had kind of collated all of the research from Barna and Pew and all these other research firms, and just said, for it starts with a personal, tangible, relational invite, and needing even something like physical, like an invite card. So like and you have to be willing to risk that invitation to relationship, and then everybody's going to check out your digital frontier, and that becomes the first bound, or the first kind of checkpoint on, hey, is this church worth showing up for, before they'll ever step foot through the door of the church. But youth group is one of those ways where, again, most people come to Christ before 18, and if you can create the sense of, wait, here's a place to be that is going to be a safe environment, that it's gonna be a ton of fun. I still am floored because every once in a while we'll have a Wednesday night like actual church service for like Ash Wednesday or Holy Week, stuff like that, and we drag the youth group kids in, and most of them are completely unchurched, and most of them come away like, that was amazing, we should do that more often. And our youth leaders turn. This is like my favorite quote of the year from Adam and Cheyenne, our youth leaders. Like, we literally do this every Sunday morning. Like you can be here. We eat well. We have a great time. We build each other up, and this is that same experience. Like, we do this weekly. Like, this isn't just a one off, and once in a blue moon. Um, and my dad lived that out for his lengthy run at youth ministry, and then transitioning into church planting, wanting to create a space where families would come, where it started as the hockey dream, it turned into something for Jungle Playland, where then I got to carry the torch on for another decade past my parents stepping away, and
Right.
and then have continued to be influential at that church. I was going to say, the other thing is, for me, being now being a senior pastor for the last 5 years, doing all this, and still having my time spent with my dad in youth ministry are some of the greatest joys in my childhood, to think back on, and to have something like this book to kind of encapsulate so much of that, and the ministry ethos that was just part of our life, and it has continued on. But it has always, the book, the stuff, the content in the book has always been something like I know I can go back to and be like, okay, you know, here's my dad, and at a high moment in his life, in ministry at Regent, all those things. So
Wow. Thank you, Jay. So, last question. What are you up to? What are you doing? And do you have a story to encourage the listeners out there? Love to hear more, because you are living out the legacy of your dad. Both you and your brother are in ministry, which is pretty incredible.
if you have time to we're cruising around or whatever, listen to my sermon from Sunday, literally talking about family being the core, or Jesus is recreating a new family, a new creation with John and Mary in front of right in front of the cross. It didn't matter that, James and other family members are around, Jesus is speaking into that moment, a new creation and a new kind of relationship. And unless, and the amazing part is, and somebody that was very influential, I'm sure you've heard this name talking with my dad, Art and Julie Nicholas. Well, I'm talking about, again, how church, family, or the church becomes family. And those relationships become more, significant because you're actually shoulder to shoulder and moving together, and you're following Jesus. You're practicing what Jesus would have us do. First time, unbeknownst to me, in our sanctuary was the nephew of Art and Julie, who had apparently he lives on South Hill in Spokane. I didn't even know he was here. He used to play for the band called The Pale, which in the Cotton Tree Convention Center, Cascade Christian Center days, they came and did a concert, and he was part of the band then. Like, so we started talking about these things. Like, again, 2.5 decades later, he's we happen to be in the same town on the other side of the state, and talking about how important those connections are to have, and to be intentional about it. One of the stories I shared in the sermon on Sunday was last week we had, and again, so back to the risking invitation, and really you're always just joining a conversation the Holy Spirit's already having with somebody. So that really is disarming. But the beauty is we had this Home Depot guy come out. He's stuff was spilling all of his pockets, and he's awkwardly has to go into people's houses all the time. But he's just I invited him. I was getting the barbecue going out front, and he was still there. I was like, hey, well, if you stick around a little longer, I'd be happy to feed you. It's like, it's only hot dogs, but you're more than welcome to take one home, or eat with us. And then I just made a comment. It's like, well, I should have. We should have invited you in to give us the quote a few days ago, because I was cooking up a meal for our church, and that just sparked a bit of the conversation. And I just kind of said something like, well, he's like, I was like, well, it's so important that we practice hospitality. Like that's in unfortunately become something of a lost art for so many people, and they're scared to, because what happens if you invite someone in? It's a total fear response. But then it said something else to the effect of, it's like, well, somebody else said something about it's really important to gather around the table and be shaped by that kind of meal. And he kind of like started to pick up, like, oh, wait a second. I under like, and I just said I got to share a bit of what I do at the church. Then he responded with, it's like, I didn't know what it was, but as big of a guy as you are, you're incredibly disarming, and I just felt at ease in your home, and I didn't know why. So unless you tell them, they're not going to know why. And unless you've let the Spirit work on you, you're not going to know why. They're not going to know why.
Thank you, Jay. And check out Guy Valley's new book and other resources at guyvalley.com.